Boom, 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 boom. Looky there. Look at that intro, Will. It's another episode of the Mindstate Marketing Hour with Will Leach. Who's Will? You need to know. Will, I've got something. Get ready. Big reveal. Look at that. Number 2 edition, Marketing to Mindstates. Look at there, the conductor gloves, the little wand. Will's the author of this book. And if you don't have this book, then you're missing out, because in here, he's going to teach you how to use science to connect with your clients. And we need it. Marketing's broken. Say that 3 times. Marketing is broken. You're supposed to say, Will, you're supposed to say, that's easy for you to say, Steve.
That's easy for you to say, Steve. Keep going.
So, Will, how you been doing, brother?
Doing really well today. Last night, I was just telling you, I got to go see and watch the Black Crowes in concert, everybody. Neat experience. If you ever have a chance to go watch them, they're performers for sure. So I am a little bit tired, but I'm always amped up to be here with you talking about my favorite topic, behavioral science-based marketing.
That's right. So Will Leach, he's the author of Marketing to Mindstates, as I pointed out, and his website is themindstategroup.com. And so on the Mindstate Marketing Hour, we discuss all the topics that revolve around the insights in Will's book, it's deep and wide. So today we're talking about how to increase marketing engagement with difficult customers. And whether we like to admit it or not, we have customers we love, but oftentimes they require additional attention and communication. Where did this inspiration come from, Will?
Yep, it was asked actually by a student of mine. And specifically, we've been teaching over at Texas A&M University. There's a program that I'm a part of called the Human Behavioral Lab. And in that program, I teach behavioral marketing. And if you want to learn more about it, go to Texas A&M University and look up the Human Behavioral Lab, and you're going to see a program on applied behavioral economics. One of the students asked me, because we've been talking about mind state marketing, which is the topic of my book. And she had asked, because we have a part of the program is for people to identify their customers and the core mind state that their customers are under. And then therefore, over the course of our classes together, we learn how to message. And I had a request from one of my students, like, what is the hardest mind state to message against or to engage with? So it got me to thinking, there are some mind states that are very intuitive to you and easy to message against, and there are others that are a little bit more difficult. So I put some thought into it, and based upon my experience, there is a particular mind state that is difficult to engage with. It's people who are very resistant to messaging and to marketing. So we're going to talk about that mind state today, and at least a couple of steps on how to engage with these types of customers better in the future.
Well, if I understand correctly, Will, due to the lockdowns and what we've been experiencing the past year or so, more people are in this mind state that we're about to discuss than ever before.
That's exactly right. You picked up on it because, society has changed. Our environment has changed. And this mind state, where I would have said, 2 or 3 years ago, not so many people were under this mind state. But now you're correct. More and more people are being driven by this particular mind state. So it's important for us to know more about it.
So to give new folks a quick synopsis, what are the mind states in here? And then let's lead into exactly the mind state we're discussing today.
That's exactly right. So you may be wondering out there, if your first time here or whatever, what exactly is a mind state? So let's just get this out of the way. A mind state is a moment of temporary emotional arousal that you find yourself under all the time. And what you may have heard of is something called a hot state. And when you're in a hot state, you're more susceptible to influence because you're using more emotional processing in making your decisions. So when you have these hot states, you have particular motivations that you're under, and you receive messaging and you receive experiences differently. So A part of a mind state is composed of, first, what are your aspirational goals? Meaning, what do you aspire to in this moment in time that would require you to change your behavior in some way? After that, you're going to want to figure out what is the motivation behind that aspiration. Now, there are 9 core motivations you're going to learn about in my book. They are achievement, or our desire for success. It is our autonomy, our desire for freedom. Belonging, our desire for acceptance. Competence, which is our desire for mastery or greater skill. Empowerment, which is our desire for control over our environment. Engagement, which is our desire to be captivated, whether that's through excitement or relaxation. Esteem, which is our desire for status. Nurturance, which is a desire to feel care or to provide care. And security, the one we're going to talk about in a second, which is a desire for safety. But that's not the only parts of a mind state. Those are the core motivations of a mind state. But did you know that there are 2 ways that you approach all of your goals? One is through what's called an optimistic lens, which is you are seeking more good things in your life. And then there's a cautious lens. And these are where you're seeking less bad things in your life. When you merge one of those 9 motivations with whether you're optimistic or cautious in nature, you bring these mind states together. So one mind state could be optimistic achievement, meaning you are seeking more good things that'll help you become successful. Another one may be cautious belonging, which is you are seeking less bad things that could cause you to lose companionship of some kind. These things matter because when you identify the mind state that somebody's under when they're engaging with your customer, it will influence your marketing strategy, your business strategy, your messaging strategy. The actual words and visuals you use will be influenced by that. Why that again matters? Because people are incredibly resistant to marketing nowadays. Why? Because we're over marketed too. We are on the average day, you're getting about 6,000 advertisements that are hitting your inbox or hitting your consciousness. Your mind is it's getting rid of so many advertisements because it just doesn't know how to handle it. Mind state marketing allows you to optimize your marketing so it passes through this filter.
Yeah, what I loved about your book is it just helped me realize that there's not a one size fits all on your marketing message and the expectations of folks. And when you consider yourself, you go through the day, you have all these emotions, we make all these decisions. And whether we realize it or not, we're in different states of mind when we evaluate those and make a call. And so in this particular one, the optimistic security, give me some specifics on maybe some examples of clients that use this so that the folks that are listening can go, oh, I may have one of these folks.
Yeah. What's interesting about this, so remember we just talked about a mind state is composed of a motivation as well as the approach. In this case, the optimistic security is the mind state somebody's under when they are seeking more security. Now, what makes this interesting and why it's difficult is imagine back when you were a child and we have been taught as young children, the way to stay safe is to avoid bad things. You avoid the dark. You avoid going into the dark at night. You avoid bad areas in your city, for instance. So we have been conditioned from our very earliest parts of our lives is the way to stay safe is to avoid bad things. Optimistic security is almost the exact opposite. When somebody's in the optimistic security mind state, they believe the best way to be safe is to get more safe, more things that will allow me to be safer. Now, I know you may think that's a small nuance, but it is not a small nuance because what this does is it provides this mechanism where people will feel more naturally inclined to engage with you if you are telling them the best way to be safe is to have more security, not avoid bad things. You want more good things. So what's interesting about this is that, a lot of companies find it very difficult to go in this direction. Why? Because everybody, like I said, has been conditioned that if you want to make people feel safe, tell them about how they'll avoid bad consequences and bad things. So they fail to deliver on a strong mind state, which is my desire to feel safer or have more protection. There's a couple of good companies that have actually been in this state, and they've actually just changed. ADT, the security system. If you look back a long time ago at some of their commercials, you'll find that most of their commercials were always organized around showing a threat, so a burglar, and how ADT prevented a burglar from coming into their home. If you look at their communications in the last 2 years, you'll see that what they're now trying to do is expand, saying ADT provides you with more protection because they've gone outside of the home. They've now provided credit protection. They're providing protection for internet. So what they're trying to do is expand, and by expanding, they had to show that they can provide more services to you. So they had to naturally change their messaging around avoid bad things into we can provide more protection. It was a brand extension opportunity, as my guess is what I've seen. So it's an example of a company who has found that it's much more powerful to tell you how I can give you more protection than I can help you avoid less or give you less threat.
All right, excellent. So let's compare. Now, let's flip that a little bit.
Let's talk about it. So remember, we just said cautious security versus optimistic security. So remember, cautious security is when you tell people, I'm going to help you avoid bad things, so less threats. And optimistic security is I'm going to give you more protection. So best way for me to show you or dimensionalize why you can or how to kind of pull these apart is through the lens of guns in schools. So let's just put this on the table that every time that there is a mass shooting, you'll hear this argument about we need to have armed security officers in schools, or maybe teachers that are armed. And there's a whole other group of people that will say, no, we need to have less weapons on the streets. We need to have less weapons near schools. Those are two arguments that people make. But let's take a look at it let's take the politics out of it. And let's look at this through a behavioral science perspective. First, everybody, we can all imagine that we have the same goal, which would be something around let's protect children in schools. So we're totally aligned on the goal. And we're probably totally aligned on the motivation, which is safety. Like, hey, the reason why we want to protect our children in schools, we want them to be safe. Got it. So we can all align around this idea that we have the same motivation. Where there is differences in how you position this idea is those people that are in the cautious security mind state, they are thinking this. They're thinking, I can increase safety by eliminating guns in schools to protect children. So they're thinking less threat. So here's what they are looking for. They're looking for things like I want to keep guns away from school. So I want to have these zones around schools that if any person brings a gun within these school zones, then there's harsh penalties. They want to take guns off streets. Another thing that you would want to see if you want to have less threat is you'd want metal detectors. So you're thinking, I want anything I can do to eliminate a gun coming onto campus. And those things will feel intuitive to you if you're in the cautious security mind state. However, remember, there's this opposite mind state, which is the optimistic security mind state. They think that the best way to protect children and to provide safety is you increase safety by having guns in school to protect children. This idea is that, hey, we already believe that there is going to be a threat. So the best way to neutralize this threat is, in their minds, would be to have more steel doors to basically make sure that people, if a threat is detected, that the school doors inside the school, they're steel reinforced so that somebody can't come in. They're talking about arming teachers or arming security guards, right? Because they know that it's through more protection of their children, they believe, is the best way to protect them. Things like maybe having more safety drills. That would be another example of a product or a feature, I guess, to provide more safety. You see how the nuances are? The things that you would focus on, in this case, a policy debate, would be impacted by whether your constituents are in the cautious security mind state or if they're in the optimistic security mind state. So remember, it just comes down to this. Our natural tendency when it comes to security, our natural tendency is to avoid bad things. But there is a huge segment of people that believe that, no, it's about optimizing good things. It's about providing more protection, more safety, as opposed to eliminating threats.
Will, I've heard this saying in marketing that more people move away from pain than towards the sweet or sugar.
Yep.
How does that land in this discussion?
I've heard the same thing, and you'll hear this ratio, guys, that there's a 2-to-1 ratio. People will avoid bad things at a 2-to-1 ratio of gaining good things. In my experience, I have not seen that same ratio, because I add that extra layer of understanding if people are optimistic or if they're cautious. Now, if people are cautious in nature, if your natural tendency is to be cautious in nature, then that ratio may hold true, meaning that for you, if you're cautious in nature, that avoiding bad things is twice as important as getting a good thing. I have seen when I talk to people who are more optimistic in nature, given a particular situation, that they want more good things, then that ratio isn't true. So I believe that, is the ratio out there? Yes. Has there been studies out there that have shown that there is a ratio? Absolutely. I think where they fall down, Steve, is that they're not also making sure that they're talking to people that are either optimistic in nature or cautious in nature. So be careful about that ratio. If you know nothing about that ratio or how to speak, go loss aversion, go cautious, because we know that in general, especially around security, people tend to be more cautious, right? It's natural because we learn it as children.
I think that really highlights the importance of the insights in your book. Because if we hadn't taken the time to understand our audience, then we have to rely on these
Rules of thumb.
General rules of thumb, right? And so what would we do? Well, let's make it 2-to-1. Let's just go with, hey, we're running away from pain on this. But think about how that could really undermine all the investment in your marketing if you hadn't taken the time to understand, which is kind of a nice little segue into how in the world do we figure this out? And guess what? You're well prepared for that answer.
That's right. So this is the thing. If we have this natural tendency to be more cautious, just because from birth, many children have been taught that the way to be safe is to avoid, risks, avoid the dark. The boogeyman's underneath your bedroom or your bed. Here's what you need to do. You need to realize that you have this natural bias. Most of us have it. I have it as well. We all generally have this bias. So the best way to tweak your messaging is kind of a 4-step process. The first thing you should do is this: realize that you probably have this bias. So just go ahead and write in your natural style to get content onto paper. I find that if you know that your customers seek more, security, meaning they're in the optimistic frame, it's very hard to start there. So just write in your natural style. You have a product, you have a service, you have a program, you have an offer that provides security. Just write naturally, because let's just get your biases out on the table. So sit there, write out your entire content, whether that's an email or whatever, write out the entire content the way that feels natural. Step number 2. Now's where you have to realize that you have this natural tendency. So let's review that email, that piece of content, and see if you have naturally positioned this as less threat. That's the issue, because we tend to naturally go into what we call the cautious security mind state. So we're naturally making this error again and again and again. You're using this general rule of thumb to message to your people. But in this case, you don't want to message about less threat. You want to provide more protection. So review it. And I want you to circle all the times you're talking to your customer about avoiding bad things. That's all you have to do. Write on a sheet of paper next to it, am I saying avoid bad things? And I want you to mark those things in red or yellow, but highlight those words, those phrases in which you are doing that. Step 3 is, once you've identified these areas that you have actually, you're using the wrong mind state, now I want you to reframe every one of those points, or as many points as possible, to, rather than talking about less threat or less bad things, talk about more protection or more good things that come because of that more protection. I know it's actually really easy to do, guys. This is one of the funner things people get a chance to do, is when they get to reframe their messaging using the correct approach. So then what they do is they reframe it. It just takes a couple of seconds to go, how would I put a positive spin on this? How would I say that this is going to provide you more good things, more protection? So go back through all those little places where you've talked about less bad, change them to more protection, more good things that come out of that more protection. Then lastly is step 4. And I've seen this happen. I know this is a bit, it's a bit different, but I know that some copywriters out there find this very difficult, or it just doesn't roll off the tongue. Why? Because again, you've been conditioned, and most of people have been conditioned that when they think about security, it's about talking about threat elimination. Don't talk about the bad things that can happen to you. So there are going to be times when you're looking at your copy and you're going to read it and it's just going to feel off, or it's just not going to roll off the tongue, and you're going to try to copy and change it and twist it again, and it's still not going to sound right. And you're going to twist it again, and it's not going to sound right to you. And you're going to give it to somebody else to read, and they're going to go, oh, it doesn't sound right. At some point, you have to make a determination and say, is this phrase, if I change it from what naturally rolls off the tongue, what naturally feels right, to more optimistic, or changing the reframing that topic, what I want you to do is say, is it a difference that makes a difference? Meaning that if it's just natural, if you want to place in something around threat elimination, fine. The overall feel of that execution should be about more protection. But sometimes you have to look at it through the lens of, is this a difference that makes a difference? And sometimes if you're struggling so hard with your copy that you cannot figure out a way to change it, perhaps the best thing you could do is leave it as it is, one area of that email. And frankly, that might be the better thing for you to do. So if you're really struggling, make sure, is it a difference that makes a difference? If you're struggling too hard, then just don't worry about it. Keep what you're doing, maybe in one area of that email, and then move forward.
All right, excellent. So yeah, these things are deep, they're important, and this is where you can get more detail on how to approach this. So Will, it's that time. So we get a lot of questions that folks submit, and these are excellent. I always wonder who's asking these sometimes, but all right. So this question is, what consumer behavior marketing jobs are out there?
This sounds like somebody who is a student, or maybe just somebody who's fascinated with consumer behavior. Hey guys, we are in such a different place than where we were a decade ago as it relates to consumer behavioral marketing jobs. A decade ago, there were very few jobs. And today, that is absolutely not the case. If you're considering behavioral marketing jobs, there is tons and tons of opportunity out there. The best way I'll dimensionalize this is there's 5 different areas you need to be looking into. The first area would be just corporate jobs. Like there are behavioral marketing jobs in corporations. Secondly, there are behavioral marketing jobs in suppliers, what we call consulting. So these are suppliers of services to these big corporations, right? So on the clients, or on the client side, and as well as the supplier side. A third place, which is huge, is government. I don't know if you knew this, but government is now, every major government on the planet is hiring behavioral marketers and behavioral scientists and people who know behavioral psychology to influence policy. The fourth place is nonprofit. And I think there's some amazing work that's happening in nonprofit, because people realize that to better our planet, to better society, we have to enact behavioral change. So they're hiring a ton of behavioral marketers right now. And then the last one is academia. More and more academic programs are out there that are wanting to bring behavioral psychology, behavioral marketing, behavioral design into their organizations, into the academic institutions. And you don't have to be a PhD to do this, by the way. There are lots of people out there that only have maybe an undergrad or a master's degree, and they are working for the largest institutions on the planet. So there are 5 areas that are massive worldwide where you can go and get a job in behavioral marketing.
Yeah, and don't you dare show up for the first interview without having read this book.
I tried to do my best to make this stuff easy for you guys.
All right, here's the next question. Are there masters in market research, consumer behavior programs online?
Again, about a decade ago, there was maybe 2 masters of marketing research programs. Now there are many. The ones that come to my mind are more the ones that have been out there for a while. First is University of Georgia has a master's marketing research program, as well as just down here near Dallas, Texas, University of Texas at Arlington. There's another program at Michigan State, really strong program in marketing research. And the last one that I'm familiar with is University of Wisconsin. But guys, Yeah, so certainly there are Masters of Marketing Research programs, but that's not the only place you can go to get like a strong background and credentials. There are also programs that institutions have. For instance, Texas A&M University has an applied behavioral economics program that you can take. And I'm a teacher at the Texas A&M University's applied behavioral economics program. But also you can actually get programs and more education from smaller programs. Like you can go to BJ Fogg's program and learn about habit creation. You can go to my program, my masterclass, where I can teach you behavioral design and Mindstate marketing as well. So it's not just about getting a master's in marketing research and consumer behavior. You can actually get this education and take this education to better your company, better your marketing through other ways, whether it's through a masterclass like mine or maybe some sort of an academic institution. It's not giving you the degree, but it's giving you a certification in that program.
All right, excellent. Next question here. How are you optimizing marketing campaigns using behavioral design?
Hey, so guys, this is, I'm probably a bit unique because I started with behavioral design and thinking about how this influences marketing back in 2009. So I've been doing it for the better part of a decade. I am actually using behavioral design in all elements of my business now. It didn't start off that way, but now it's in all elements. It starts off with targeting. So when I'm doing Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads, I'm using behavioral design principles and the principles from my book, Marketing to Mindstates, in the targeting of my ads. After that, I've actually built it into my strategy. So you'll learn in my book, there is this mind state called optimistic empowerment. That is the strategy or the mind state I use to build my business strategy against. I'm also using behavioral design for the marketing strategy. The overall campaign development is based upon behavioral design principles. I've also incorporated it into my products and services where it makes sense. So if I'm going to promise to you that I'm going to help you get more control over your business, optimistic empowerment, I have to have services in place that actually provide you the ability to gain greater control. So I've tweaked my product offers to provide greater control over my programs. Lastly, I get down to campaign strategy, meaning when I do a 3 to 4 week email campaign, it is built into my campaign and the actual tactics. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect in any of those. It's, there's a lot of things going on, but I found that using behavioral design across the entire 360 campaigns, the entire business, I found that I'm gaining greater consistency over the people I want to attract, gaining greater consistency in their engagement and greater consistency in my business results.
Excellent, Will. I love these questions. You get excellent questions. All right, so tell us a little bit about what's the Mindstate Marketing class.
Mindstate Marketing class is a program that I designed last year that allows you, if you have a passion for behavioral design and you want to bring this into your organization, but you want to do it in a way that's do it yourself. Maybe you're going to work on it at night, or you want to, you're that kind of person that just wants to get into the nuts and bolts of things. We created a masterclass. Now, the masterclass is a 12 video program where you will work with me via videos to apply the book Marketing to Mindstates to your business. Now, what's interesting about that is not only I'm going to teach you the academics behind some of the principles in the book, and I'm going to talk to you about how these principles influence my own life, but we go through a case study where you're going to see how we're designing a brand from the bottom up using the principles of Mindstate marketing. So it's a really easy way for you to be introduced to the topic of Mindstate marketing. It's less than $1,000, and you get to keep these videos forever. And then, of course, you get some downloads as well. So it's a really great way of getting involved with Mindstate marketing without a large investment until you're ready to kind of start working hand in hand with an advisor.
Well, another one for the books. This has been an excellent episode, Will. So tell us a little bit. So this is new and it's out. Okay. Where can we get it? Give us a few details.
Yes. So I wanted to do a revised edition of Mindstate Marketing. The book behind me, that one right there, there it is. That was written in 2018. Well, behavioral sciences are always evolving. And what I found is that some of I had some clarity issues in the first book. So what I wanted to do was bring in some new thinking, make it clearer, bring in some new resources for you. So I actually just came out with this new book, Marketing to Mindstates, has the same great material, but it's a little, it's more clear and with these new downloads. So it's now available on all the major platforms. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, any major bookstore online, you can get it. We also have a version on Audible, which is my first audio version of it, as well as Kindle and all your digital downloads. So what you want to do is if you get any of these digital downloads, the new book cover is going to look like this. So keep this in mind. It just came out. The latest and greatest information is there for you to kind of start reading and learning the latest on Mindstate marketing.
All right, Will. Anything else? You're everywhere. Is there any other little announcements we need to discuss?
Lots of cool things going on with us. Everything is going great. We were just on an episode of CNBC last night where I was discussing stress in marketing and how marketers and businesses are using or targeting people that are highly stressed. So last night, if you were watching the Shepard Smith in the news with Shepard Smith, I had a really short segment about how to apply Mindstate marketing to drive your business. So anyways, it was a kind of a fun experience. It's brand new for me. And hopefully I'll get to do some of that stuff in the near future.
I'm sure you will. All right. Well, be sure to visit mindstategroup.com where you can learn about the Marketing Masterclass, connect with Will, get his book, whatever it is you need. And Will, you have a great weekend. Any last words? And I'm going to kick off this new little intro.
No last words, everybody. Thanks a lot. And we'll see you next week.
All right.